Hello, it's Dr. Shelley, and I am here to do a little bit of endocrine with you. So today we're going to talk about Addison's, and we're going to do a little comparison as well with Cushing's. But first, of course, for you to understand anything about Addison's or Cushing's, you must start with the stress response. Now, everybody in my class up here in Cleveland, Ohio knows that I have a grudge. Yes, I mean, God is still working on me, but I have a grudge. There was a young lady named Debbie Jackson when I was in 6th grade, and she used to beat me up every Friday. So needless to say, I was quite stressed. Now, what was going on inside my 6th grade head with Debbie Jackson from Mississippi? Just moved to the neighborhood bully. Y'all know about that. So what was going on with that? Here we go. I was going under, every Friday, a stress response. Now, what does that mean? Well, you know that with the stress response, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in, and we call that fight or flight. Now, you may remember from school, there was something called a parasympathetic nervous system, and that was rest and digest. That was not me. I was preparing every Friday to fight or flight. Now let's talk about that, because to be honest with you, I was not preparing to fight. Yeah, I was a little bit of a punk, if you will. And I blame my parents for that, because if you were my cousins, my crazy cousins, they all could fight, but they all had parents, like all of them had parents that had a motto when they were raising their children: parents, listen up. The way it went was either you kick their ass or you bring your punk ass back home and I'm going to kick your ass. Don't come in here acting like you scared of nobody, okay? So y'all remember that. You kick their ass or I'm kicking your ass. Okay, well, I didn't have those kind of parents. No. I had the kind of parents that were kumbaya, peace on earth. That shit don't work with Debbie Jackson from Mississippi, okay? So I had to figure out something, because the fight part wasn't happening, right? So I decided to use the flight portion of the stress response. My sympathetic nervous system was preparing me to kick ass by my feet. So that's probably why I'm good with track, y'all. I was a runner. Now, when we talk about fight or flight, you've got to remember this big $4 word. It is catecholamines. Catecholamines is the chemicals or hormones that are triggered or produced, stimulated when you're in a fight or flight response or stress response. These catecholamines require that your pituitary and your adrenals are working together. So your anterior pituitary, and remember that's that little bitty part of your brain in the center of your head. So if you put your finger through your nose, which I don't want you to do, but if you did and you could go all the way up, if you put that finger in that nose and you went all the way up, you would touch your pituitary. And so the pituitary helps prepare me to run from Debbie Jackson by producing something called Adrenalcortical trophic hormone. This then stimulates my adrenals. Now, some of y'all are challenged when it comes to anatomy and physiology. So I'm going to challenge you to put your hand on your adrenals. Yeah, put your hands on your adrenals. I need you to do that right now, right now. Oh, I see you out there. You done put your hand all up on your neck. Some of y'all got your hand all in your tits. Some of y'all got your hand on your ass thinking it got to be back here, don't they? No, fool. The adrenals are scully caps on top of your kidneys. Watch this. Adrenals. additional renals. Add it to your renals. It's Scully caps on top of your kidneys, okay? And they do a lot of what kidneys do, so that's very appropriate. So this ACTH from my anterior pituitary stimulated my adrenals to produce what? Take a wild guess. Adrenaline. Hey! Y'all already know what the hell adrenaline is. Adrenaline gives you Superman powers. Adrenaline gets you crunked. It made, like, you know, things that can't happen normally happen. What am I talking about? I'm talking about adrenaline had my patient save her husband when she got home from work, turned the light switch on, and the whole house blew up. Sister girl ran through that burning house to find her man, which she knew was asleep upstairs. Now, I've been married 17 times. I ain't met a man yet to make me run through the fire, but there is hope, honey, because I got a new boo. Y'all need to know I got a new boo. Now, she ran through that fire and didn't even know she was on fire, didn't feel the fire. Now, I'm going to bring it on down to the street life, okay? Because I'm street, I just got to keep it real. Adrenaline causes a person caught up in a drive-by to not even know they've been shot. They don't feel it. They can't. They running. Everybody in the drive-by is running, child. They are running. And so they look down, they see this blood. Where the fuck is that coming from? It's coming from your ass. You better get to a hospital. You know what I'm saying? Adrenaline, you get it. So this adrenaline is another name for the $4 words that you're going to see in the hospital, especially during a code called epinephrine. Y'all know if you got a cold, that epinephrine gonna give you a pulse and a blood pressure, as well as norepinephrine. So if you leave up out of my class and you go work in ICU and you take this norepinephrine in the ICU and you hang it IV infused, if you infuse that patient with norepi, the brand name on that bag, that infusion, is called Levophed. See, these are made in our pharmacy as well. So you got your epi. We always run a code with epi, y'all. Norepi, this is to treat shock because it raises your blood pressure, and all shock has a low blood pressure. Now pay, now pay. You know that. So when you think of epinephrine and norepinephrine, remember that the action is vasoconstriction, right? And that vasoconstriction, which is the action, is another way to say something that you may have seen on a test, in a book, and said, what the fuck is that? That's called peripheral vascular resistance. Peripheral, hands, legs, feet, you know, periphery of the body, not the core or the central part of the body. So if you cause peripheral vascular resistance, you cause vasoconstriction in my arms and my legs. You shunted that blood to my brain and my heart because I've got to think my way out of getting my ass kicked with Debbie Jackson. All right. I hope you're staying with me because I need you to be focused. Also, during this fight or flight stress response controlled by the sympathetic nervous system, which puts out catecholamines, is the fact that your adrenals, follow the purple line, is going to also put out cortisol. Here's where we get into some interesting shit. Cortisol. Cortisol increases your blood pressure, increases your blood sugar, increases the sodium and water retention, and increases your alertness, gives your ass some energy, and that could mean later down the road you can't even go to sleep. Insomnia, right? And then it decreases the immune response. Now, this whole stress response is really very related to acute stress, okay? Acute stress, like all of a sudden, really bad, okay? Now, for me, Debbie Jackson was acute stress. So how did I manage this one day, the last day Debbie Jackson tried to kick my ass on a Friday after school in 6th grade? How did I manage? Well, I decided I'm going to sit on the front of the school bus, because if I sit on the front, this bitch in the back, if I sit on the front, I can get off the bus and run really fast to the house, and maybe I could strategize how to work this out. So I had all that blood flow to my brain and my heart. I could feel my heart pounding. What is that called? Tachycardia. Pounding, right? It was going. Boy, I tell you, it was going. And then I could feel like I was just like energy, like I got this shit. Oh. So what did that? That was that energy and that blood sugar that I got from the cortisol. Y'all with your girl? Now I got off that bus. I started racing and running and running and racing. And I got to my house. I opened up the door. I let my dogs out, y'all. They kicked her ass. They fucked her up. Debbie Jackson went down that day with the dogs. Who let the dogs out? Woof, 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 who? I'm so sorry. I can't stay focused sometimes when I think of the Cleveland Browns. I get so excited. Okay. Now, so you're good? Now, I have one more thing to share with you. Debbie Jackson didn't bother me no more. But that type of stress is probably not what you're going to see on your test. I just don't think Debbie Jackson made the test. I don't think Debbie Jackson is on NCLEX. So what kind of stress is on your test? The acute stress on your test includes stressors to the human body are surgery, illness, pregnancy, fever or infection, and of course, trauma. So that means that if we have any of these stressors in the human body on an NCLEX exam, we're gonna see this whole system kick in. And that patient will have elevated blood sugars, elevated blood pressure, sodium and water retention. You see where I'm going with this? It makes sense. Now, I had to do it like that. You had to meet Debbie Jackson today in order to understand Addison's. So we're going to go into Addison's, but I also have the opposite condition right next to it called Cushing's. But we're only going to look at a comparison between Addison's and Cushing's. We're not going to do Cushing's specifically. We are really specifically concentrating this video on Addison's. So here we go. Addison's or adrenal insufficiency, remember adrenals. Addison's or adrenal insufficiency is typically caused by autoimmune disease, or it could be that the patient had a really bad infection like tuberculosis that caused damage to the adrenals. So you got to know both of those. When it comes to Addison's, we look at this column, but we could never look at this column without looking at this one because they are exact opposites. Here, the patient has a weak and thready pulse, but it's tachycardic. The only thing they share is tachycardia. Here for Cushing's, they have a bounding pulse with tachycardia. The only thing they share is tachycardia. This patient's problem, the reason why they're having all this difficulty, is that they do not have enough ACTH. Now, you know, typically there's no abbreviations on your NCLEX or your HESI, so that will say adrenal-cortical-trophic hormone. Adrenal-cortical-trophic hormone. Adrenal, we talked about that. Cortical, you know about that. You know when I say the word cortical, like I was over here talking about cortisol, you already know that's steroids. Don't act brand new. Now, you don't have any steroids. So you cannot do any of this. You can't kick in a fight or flight response. You will not raise your blood pressure. Your sugar will not go up. You will not retain sodium and water, and you sure as hell ain't gonna be alert. Yeah, watch this. Addison's, no cortisol, low blood pressure, low blood sugar because of the low ACTH. Cushing's is just the opposite. High blood pressure, high blood sugar, high ACTH. Addison's is a low sodium, Cushing's is a high sodium. Addison's is a high potassium, Cushing's is a low potassium. Addison's is complete dehydration, Cushing's the opposite, fluid retention. Addison's is weight loss with muscle wasting. Cushing's is weight gain with truncal obesity. Here we have zebra skin. Here we got a buffalo hump. Now, I don't know if them damn animals is opposite, but you need to roll with me and stop being too crazy, specific, and picky. Abrupt discontinuation of steroids, long-term high doses of steroids. The diet for the Addison's patient is high protein, and actually salt is encouraged. Now, let me say something to you right there. The only 3 people on your test where salt is encouraged, what the fuck did you just say? The only 3 people where salt is encouraged is cystic fibrosis, Addison's, and lithium patients. That was for free. The diet for the Cushing's patient is low sodium, high calcium, and vitamin D. This patient with Addison's is extremely exhausted and fatigued. Makes sense, because I told you if you had cortisol, your little ass got crunked up and alert and let's go to the party and boom. No, we ain't going to no damn party. We're extremely fatigued. There is something called hyperpigmentation, which I'm going to talk to you a little behind in a minute. They're going to have nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea from the K. They're going to experience something called syncope. And yes, your little ass got to know that word, syncope. It means fainting. They are at risk for dying from an adrenal crisis. The treatment for Addison's and an adrenal crisis is steroids. Maintenance is PO, pills, right? You're going to take 2/3 the dose during the day and only 1/3 at night because I should have keep you up. But they also need to carry a steroid pen IM. Now think about it. If you think about carrying a steroid pen IM, that sounds a lot like an EpiPen IM, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, because this patient may get into unpredictable, stressful situations like a car accident, or maybe they got served with divorce papers, or maybe Debbie Jackson showed up in Cleveland. In each of those situations, this patient needs to prepare to just boom, give themselves a shot, because they are going to die from stress. Stress will kill this patient. So the other part of the treatment for the Addison's patient is decreased stress. Now, let me tell you something. These patients need steroids for the rest of their life. And there's lots of reasons why they kicked into Addison's. I told you it could have been autoimmune, where the body developed antibodies and destroyed the adrenal tissue. It could have been tuberculosis as an infection that hurt the adrenal tissue. But it also could have been, look at this, an abrupt discontinuation of steroids. You know you're supposed to teach your patients to wean off their steroids. And if you don't teach that, they can develop Addison's. That's what this is all about, okay? Now, we have the exact opposite over here. I'm going to take care of that in a little bit, but you need to understand Addison's is not that bad. And if you just remember the person doesn't have steroids, and the steroids the action of steroids, you will be fine. I think I did a video on steroids and pharmacology as well. Now, this patient who might develop an adrenal crisis, what I did is I put everything that they're gonna have, which basically is Addison's on crack, right? I took the extremes, and because it's a crisis, right? You know, anytime there's a crisis, you see them first. But this crisis, and every time you hear the word crisis, it's deadly. This crisis takes whatever the patient already had and puts it on crack, honey. Puts it on steroids, just like goes crazy. So what would it be if you was just extreme in this condition? Well, your potassium would be high in deadly levels. Your sodium would now qualify for hyponatremia. You know what that is. Your blood pressure would be so low, your kidneys are at risk for failing, and you are literally going into hypovolemic shock. Your blood pressure your blood sugar is so low, my God, you could slip into a coma easily. You're so dehydrated that all of your organs are not being perfused correctly, and that's really ugly. So you already know what you're about to do. You're about to give some Salucortef IV, that's cortisone, IV. You're about to hang fluid bolus, but the cortisone is your highest priority because this patient can't just use fluid without the steroids, right? You're going to get that blood sugar up. You already know this. So you know, you get it. So the patient needs steroids yesterday. All right. Deuces. Hope you liked it. Debbie Jackson. Don't come to Cleveland. I know how to fight now.